Hi, Colin here. Today, I'm excited to tell you the process about my latest digital painting, Into the Feywild.
So, as usual, I start all my paintings in the same way, starting with the area of focus first. In this case, it is a wandering druid who has traveled many, many miles to seek a mysterious portal that leads to the fairy realm. I'm using my photographic reference here and making sure I'm getting proportions and other drawing issues out of the way before proceeding further. Next, I lay my sketch of the character into a layered Photoshop file and start working on the background and the setting. I knew this character was going to be facing away from the viewer. Anytime you don't show a character's face, you have to do a lot of narrative heavy lifting with other elements. So in this case, for me, it's really the background that has to tell a lot of the story, because you can't see the character's face and you can't register their emotions to give you a hint into the story behind the picture. So a lot of what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of balancing all these different elements that I know need to work together if this painting is going to succeed. And I try to do all that before I really dig into details and all those really fun little aspects of the character that make him interesting and intriguing thing to look at. You can see here I'm starting to get into those details, such as his costume. Here I'm working on his shoulder bag, and I really wanted to show that he's traveled a very long way to get to this hidden fairy portal. I try to imagine what kind of gear this character would be bringing with him. What does he need to walk many, many miles on foot alone? So I think about his canteen, his various pouches of food and equipment and accessories that he needs to survive for many, many days all by himself. So as you can tell, I really love getting into all those fun little details. Here I'm detailing the fairy city that he's approaching through the portal, and I worked on this mainly through a lot of photo compositing, working from reference that I have in my personal library of European cities. So a lot of these towers and these spires are from the city of Riga in Latvia, and I really enjoy putting in those personal touches because for me it's like I can hide these little nuggets within a painting that are actually from my own personal travels. Such as this church bell tower was a really fun little element that I really enjoyed adding here, and for me it just makes everything feel more real. Back to working on the character. Again, I just dive into more and more details as I move ahead, and all the while I'm trying to keep in mind that I want to tell the story for this character in the most clear way possible. So I try to get things right, like his staff, the hand that's holding his staff. I match up other details like his embroidery on his costume, and I just want the whole thing to really feel cohesive and lived in, like it's a scene that you can believe. Here I've placed in a fairy that he's holding in his hand. She's actually an injured fairy that he's bringing back to her home, and I realized that after I'd placed it there, having him look down at the fairy just didn't make any sense. He's been traveling with her for miles, and he should really be contemplating this scene before him, this portal that he has traveled many, many days to find. And so this just goes to show, don't be afraid to change things in a painting if they aren't working. Changing the head was a major shift, but I just knew it was the right thing to do. And after I did that, I actually made an additional change with the fairy herself. I showed the piece to some friends, and they all agreed that what is that thing holding in his hand? They couldn't tell what it was, and if the fairy's not communicating, then the painting just doesn't work. It falls flat. She needs to be clearly visible in his hand because it's a really big part of the emotional content of this scene. So I had to do a lot of redrawing. I redrew his hand too, and wanted to make it look more like she's glowing and she's filling his hand with light. And so that was a lot of extra work, but I realized I had to do it to make the painting work. Like there was no other way it was going to sell itself to viewers. And here I'm working on final details for the painting, And one last thing I knew I wanted to add was some glowing fairy magic coming out of the portal to make it feel more otherworldly and more mystical. Adding these little glowing orbs and such is like pretty fun because it's so easy to do, but one thing that's good to note is that these little touches don't work unless the structure of the painting is also solid. Something I've learned over the years is that everything else has to be working before applying final touches. And that's the final for Into the Feywild. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video.